Welcome back, guys. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and sharing. Today we're doing a DIY project with brakes on an Audi S5. This will also hold true for A4s, A5s, S4s, S5s, and even some of the A3s and S3s. Sorry. So what you need to do is obviously put the car on the jack, put the stands down, take the wheels off. Keep in mind the lug nuts on the Audis are 17 millimeter. You can do it with a gun or you can do it with an impact wrench socket. At the same time, you will need some tools, obviously new brakes, new sensors. Make sure you order the sensor, at least the Audi sensor or Audi certified sensor. That's one of the things. You can lift the whole car up in the front and then do both sides. But whatever you do, make sure you take this is your brake reservoir. Open this up because when you're going to extract the caliper, some of the oil has to be pushed back air. I know some people will say we need to drain that oil, and some people like to put in remove the oil line, brake line, and remove the oil from there, but I just usually open this up. So let me walk over and show you what you need. I'll link the rotors and the pads. Obviously these are Audi pads, Audi rotors, as you can see, factory ones. The reason you have these double-sided, the tape on here is because that's what goes in the caliper and gets stuck on it. This one goes inside the caliper pin, and that's why it holds it right here. You'll need a socket wrench, pick tool, and the reason you need this is on the driver's side is the sensor, as you can see here. When we have to remove this sensor, we got to turn it 90 degrees to the right, and this is easiest to do it with a pick tool. You won't be able to do it with a flathead, and I'll show you guys. You need a 17 millimeter socket for the lug nuts. 21 millimeter is for your caliper holder bracket, and then to open up the caliper pins, it's 13 millimeter. And then you can get a flathead because you will need this to pry this sticky pad off of the caliper itself. Let me get going, and then I'll put the thing on a stand, and then we can watch the video from there. So one thing I forgot to mention, you will need a T30, however you do it, to take this bolt off. If you have the torque. If you don't, you might have a Phillips or something else in here, but original will be a T30. Get this off, and then you're going to use 21 back here to get these holders off, and then you're going to use 13 to get the caliper off. Use a flathead. Basically what I'm going to show you is go like this, but put your hand in front because this will flick off. You don't want to hit your eyes. Rest of the video, I'm just going to fast forward it without sound, so there you go. So what I'm doing here is using a flathead to pry out the bracket pin. It's holding the caliper and the pad inside, then using a T30 Torx to remove the bolt for the rotor. And then you can use PB Blaster or you can use WD-40 to spray the screws for the 21 millimeter, which is the caliper holder, and the 13 millimeter are the calipers to break them loose. And then use a pointy tool or a pick tool to get to the brake wear sensor wire. So it's plugged into the bracket behind on the wishbone control arms suspension line. Basically what you're going to do is pry your tool inside on the top piece and either push it down clockwise or turn it 90 degrees so it comes off. Once you turn it 90 degrees, you can push it down and it comes off like I did, and then just push down on the sensor and the sensor comes out. And then you'll see that you can fish the line out from the brake line because it's attached to the rubber of the grommet of the brake line, and then you just pry it out and it attaches to the inner pad, which is right by the piston. And then you want to use a ratchet and a 21 millimeter to loosen the bolts for the caliper holder, and then 13 millimeter for the caliper itself. So as you saw me taking off the sensor wire goes around the brake line, comes in here, and clips right here. So as you can see, I've already taken it off. Take the sensor off. As you saw me take the wire off from back behind the caliper, behind the drum, vacuum brake shield. This comes into your brake pads, and this is what tells you the car inside how much has been worn out. Obviously, I took this off. Once you take this off, what you can do is take a flathead, and this is only if you're changing your rotors. If you're just changing your pads, don't do this, because all we're doing is pushing this caliper back in as much as possible, and all I'm doing is putting this in here, which will leave a line on your rotor, and I'm gonna push this as much as I can to reset my caliper all the way flat in, right? So then I don't have to worry about resetting it afterwards, but this way it gives me flexibility to do this. Once I do that, all I have to do is take off these caliper pins, which are 13s, and this whole thing will come right off, hang it, and go from there. Okay, so all I'm doing is using a 13 millimeter, taking out the caliper pins. If you ordered the Audi parts, these will come new. You can use a new one. If these are good, you can reuse them. So here I'm attaching putting on a new rotor, using the screw for the rotor and tightening it down to T30 with a hand. If you get a new screw, you can use it. If not, you can put in the old screw. So these are the caliper holder. And what I'm doing right now is the bracket I'm cleaning off where the brake pad sits. Just using a wire brush and clean it as much as possible. I did it earlier in the video as well when it was on, but now since I took them off, I did it. I'm going to use some brake clean to clean them off to get the dust off, because this side was a little dusty. So here, once I have them, I can use the brake lubricant to put brake lubricant on them, all four pieces. One thing to keep in mind and be super cautious about, the way these caliper brake pads sit on them, they're very close to the rotor. So if you get the brake lubricant on the rotor, when you're tightening it down, just wipe it. Make sure you don't leave it on the brake rotor itself. Um, as much as careful you are, you might get some on the brake rotor here, you can see. And what I'm doing now is tightening the caliper holder, which is with a 21 millimeter bolt. And they get tightened to 190 Newton meters. What I'll do is I'll also link it down below what the foot pounds is, but caliper holder bolts are 190 millimeter. So your two new pads will be different. The pad that's on the outside will have a little snub that hangs out and goes on the outside. The inside pad will have a little clip that clips into the caliper piston. Just make sure you put some brake lubricant on both ends where the caliper hangs. Sorry, where the brake pad hangs on it. And what I'm doing now is I'm putting the outside, removing the double-sided tape from it and putting it on the outside, as you can see. And then what you're going to do is use the other one, which has the clips, put it on the piston inside. But this one, as you can see, has a wire attached to it, which is your brake sensor. So just carefully run it through, fish it through the opening on the outside, and then you can push in the caliper, push in the brake pad on the caliper piston. And then there's also a double-sided sticky tape in there that you have to remove. So once you remove that, and it just pops right in. Just keep in mind you want to fish the wire for the sensor through, and then you will be able to put this on. So what you want to do here is, if your caliper is not fitting over the rotor, that means your caliper piston was not pushed in all the way. So if it's pushed in, it should slide right back in. Once it slides in, what you have to do is push out the guide pins all the way at the back, so the bolt and the pins line up, so you will be able to insert the 13mm bolts on the top and the bottom. Again, if you got the new Audi bolts, they come with a seal on it. You can use those. Otherwise, you can reuse the old bolts and use some Loctite on it. I ended up using the old ones as they were perfectly fine. I did not see a problem with them. Um, Keep in mind when you are tightening those caliper bolts, you want to make sure they're torqued at 30 Newton meters. And what I'll do is I'll link it down in the video below what it is equivalent to for the foot-pounds. But this will be get tightened to 30 Newton meters for caliper bolt pins. And again, the top and the bottom does not matter which ones are which, but you're able to use them. Just keep in mind, if you use the original ones, put a Loctite on. If you use the new ones, they will have it and you don't have to put Loctite on it. And then what you want to do is fish the wire for the brake sensor behind. Again, or keep in mind that you have to open up the little holder by the brake line drain and run it through, and then attach it. Once you attach it, it should click in and you'll hear the click. And then all you need to do is put it back in the bracket holder that you're looking at right now and turn it counterclockwise 90 degrees, and it should come right up, and then it'll click and it'll lock in. This will be the same procedure for the passenger side. The only difference would be there is going to be no brake wear sensor on the passenger side. The process stays the same. Once you are done here, what you will do is install the rattle clip bracket. The easiest way I found out was to pull it a little bit further out on one side and then push it in the middle, and then basically wiggle it back in from side to side, and it will go on there. Again, keep in mind this can fling it open, so just keep it completely tight. Thank you guys for liking, subscribing, and watching. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. Thank you.